Hello, my name is Arthur, and this is a quick part 2 to the Blender to Godot flying game asset video. And I thought I'd come back and just outline the changes that I made and how I got things working. So first off, we'll just have a quick look at what it does. And basically it's just a first show graphic still. Right now it will take off when the player approaches and encroaches on its area. And everything's all the same. You can walk on the shadow and walk underneath the insect. So the Y sorting came out pretty nifty. So in Godot, I made some changes to the image and my thinking. Instead of having the origin for the image at the center, I decided to use an offset, and that way I could go with a smaller resolution image and a smaller sprite sheet as a result. So I just used an offset here of -65 to offset the image and sort of maximize the use of the frame. The animation player turned out pretty much exactly how I expected. It has an idle, a takeoff, and a looping fly animation. Then it has the collision shape. Once the insect reaches the point of flying, the collision shape is going to shrink. That's more or less for later purposes, maybe if a character goes through the new smaller circle, the insect could sting or be swattable or something to that effect. For the script is very simple. It has the body entering the area to trigger the takeoff, and it's a one-shot. So I used a boolean that just flips from false to true to make it a one-shot deal. And then when the takeoff animation finishes, it plays the looping fly animation and scales the collision shape. That's about it. It was made out of an area 2D because there's no actual player interaction with it. Sprite, the animation player, and the collision shape. So we could have a quick look and go backwards and look at how it was done in Gimp. And I changed things up from the player animation sprite sheet in terms of method. So first off, I start off with a calculator to calculate the new resolution of 256 by 256, which is the configuration of the grid here. The grid is set to snapping, and configured at a 256 cube, or square I should say. And when it comes to putting the images onto, whoops, we're in the wrong window there. We'll just cut these out, and that was a mistake. We'll just cut the images out and have a quick look at how it was assembled. Instead of opening all of the images and using a copy and paste, I discovered I can just drag and drop from the save folder. So this is the folder the images were rendered into in Blender, and I can just use drag and drop and pick them up. In Gimp, you can't move a layer unless you're actually touching something in the layer, like it has to be colored pixels. And then I would just work my way down the folder until I got to the center image, because each time you drop, it lands in the center image. So when I get to the quadrant just before the center, I'll actually go to the bottom of the folder and start filling in from the other side of the sprite sheet. And because this animation had 23 frames, I just took the last 2 frames and repeated them in frame 24 and frame 25. So the first frame is the idle animation, the first 23 frames are the takeoff animation, and the last 2 frames were the flying animation. We'll just close this up and discard all that. Now in Blender I made a couple of changes as well. There's the resolution changed to 256 by 256, and then on the plane I changed its material in order to reduce the shadow. And what I discovered is that by increasing the transmission, it would increase how much it's transmitting the environment off of the plane, which you can see here. That's the show of the environment on the plane, and that light transmission reduces the shadow without any side effects. I did find if I crank the transmission up too high, the dragonfly will start showing a reflection of itself on the surface and double the shadow. So it was a little bit of how high can I go without causing that reflection to happen. Other than that, I simply reframed in the image the orange dot being the origin of the dragonfly, which was already shown in Godot as being the offset for the rendered animation images. What that got me was, well, I didn't maximize the frame. I could have tightened in a little bit closer and perhaps reduced the resolution of the image a little bit further. But the idea was to get the insect closer to the frame and the shadow closer to the frame. And there is still room to reduce the resolution a bit, but I just went with this as it was sort of one of the round numbers. 256 is one of the round numbers that you kind of get used to in graphics and computer stuff. So in the next video, I'm looking at doing something new and trying to get a building going. So I've been scaling my building. This is an old model that I made of a local building in my town. This is a old Canadian train station that I put a fair amount of effort into modeling this one. And I was thinking I would try to get this as a graphic in an isometric game and see if I can figure out how to get something this large to Y-sort properly. So that'll be in the next videos, and until then, take care.